Welcome to the Healing Health Podcast. I'm Amber Petty. In this episode, I'll be talking to Associate Professor Gary Sachs from Deakin University's Institute for Health Transformation. We sat down to discuss his research on Australia's laziest food companies and the creation of the Obesity Prevention Report Card. Join us now in the conversation. So Gary, welcome to the podcast. I can't move forward without talking about your title or part of your title. So Gary Sachs is a Heart Foundation Future Leader Fellow at the Global Obesity Centre at Deakin University. What does that mean?
Well, I work at Deakin.
Yes.
And our research group is the Global Obesity Centre. All of us in the group do research in how we can address obesity. And I've secured a fellowship from the Heart Foundation to do my research, what that means is that money from the Heart Foundation is being used to fund my research. And that's in recognition by the Heart Foundation that obesity is a major contributor to heart disease. And so anything we can do to address the problem will help out with heart disease.
So you're in the gifted position of actually there is funding. This is a genuine issue. So there's money there for you to do what you do best.
That's right.
Whereas some of the other people, obviously, that I've spoken to are hoping to get more funding for their research.
That's right. It's a very competitive environment to get research money, and so it's great that the Heart Foundation recognised the importance of this research.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that kind of answers, I guess, in terms of obesity. You know, what are some of the biggest diseases that are related to obesity? So it's heart disease. Heart disease is like the number one killer of Australians. Is that right?
Yes, that is right, and we know that unhealthy diets is a huge contributor to that.
Yeah.
So if we can take steps to improve our diet, we'll reduce heart disease, and we'll also reduce cancer rates and diabetes, which is a major problem for Australia.
So I understand that heart disease is one of the biggest killers of Australians. I understand we've got an obesity issue in Australia, but I'm more confused around why we have an obesity issue in Australia. And I guess what is obesity? In my head, I have an idea of what I think is an obese person, but I may have that wrong because I also know that we have such a huge obesity rate, which doesn't seem to fit with what I see out in society. What does obesity literally look like?
So the World Health Organization defines obesity as a BMI over 30. So that... and they define overweight as a BMI over 25. So really it's just about excess weight, and the risk of diseases really goes up when your weight is above a BMI of 25. Now in Australia, about 2/3 of people are considered overweight, and so that means they're just at higher risk of heart disease and diabetes and these other diseases that are linked to that. So it's a major public health problem for Australia.
So, okay, so it's not, so when we're talking obesity, are we still encapsulating people that might be, for instance, a size 16, or are we putting people under the banner of obesity that would have no clues that they were being included in that?
Yeah, I think certainly a lot of people would be surprised when they work out what their BMI is, that it's actually, they're classified as obese.
Yeah.
And so people that we would maybe describe as carrying a little bit of extra weight, actually their risk of disease is higher than if they were at a healthy weight.
And why is that?
Well, the physiology of it's probably a little bit too complex to go into here, but it's just, I guess, it's harder for your body to function well when you're carrying extra weight. Your arteries are clogged with extra fat, and there's really good evidence to show that several diseases are you're more likely to get several diseases if you're overweight or obese.
It's interesting, isn't it? And just before we move on to the interesting report you've done, which really kind of like puts a spotlight on food companies and the part that they play, Is the obesity rates or levels in Australia, is it at its worst now, or have we got better but it's still not great? Like, what does that look like?
So since the 1980s, obesity rates have been steadily climbing, and we're probably at around about the highest level. In kids, there's some evidence that maybe the rates in kids has sort of stabilized, but at a really high level. But for adults, it is the highest it's been. And as I say, the health consequences are really serious. This has major economic costs to Australia. It's costing us billions of dollars. And obviously the health costs are really important to all of us.
So apart from heart disease, what are the other costs to the healthcare system for people? Or is it just sort of any, I guess, health-related issue is
there's a number of diseases that are linked to obesity. And so,
what are they?
So diabetes, heart disease, several cancers are affected by your weight.
Which type of cancers?
So colon cancer is one of the biggest risk factors, one of the biggest cancers in Australia that's linked to obesity. So is breast cancer. There's no doubt it's a major problem. And so that's why our research is looking at how do we fix this problem?
Yes. And also what I'm getting to know more through doing this series is where you say money, where money is being spent on heart disease, diabetes, and all of these areas. And then there's all of these other areas in our healthcare system that absolutely need more money. They need some of this shifted over. That's integral to the health of our health system. Okay, so let's talk about the interesting report that you did that rated food companies in Australia. Tell me about that.
So we know that if we want to address the problem of obesity, we need a whole of society approach. So that means we're going to need governments to take some action. We're going to need food companies to take some action, as well as the community in general. And so what we did in this report is look at what role food companies are playing in obesity and how seriously are they taking the problem, what steps are they taking to address it. What the report did is we looked at the biggest food companies in Australia. So these include
who are they?
Big food companies like people would know companies like Nestle and Kellogg's and Unilever. We also looked at companies like the fast food companies, McDonald's, KFC.
McDonald's. I mean, look, I'm now pescatarian, so a lot of what McDonald's does I no longer like, although I loved a Big Mac. But they seem to outwardly seem very clever in they have responded to the shift in health concerns for Australians, while no doubt also being one of the biggest food, restaurant caterers to, I would imagine, obesity, affected customer. What are your thoughts on how they have operated? They seem to be a trailblazer in at least looking like they've responded.
Well, yes, these companies are all really good at looking like they're responding. So McDonald's likes to position themselves as someone who might care about your health. And yes, they have taken some steps to have some healthy options on their menu. They certainly make some commitments around how they market their products. They make promises not to market their unhealthy products to kids, for example. But really what our research shows and what I'll explain is that a lot of this is window dressing. McDonald's, let's not kid ourselves, makes most of their money out of selling Big Macs with fries and a Coke. So while they may put a salad on the menu, that's not where they're making their money.
It's token.
And that's not that. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And but equally, let's not pick too much on McDonald's, because some of the companies are not even taking those token gestures. So I guess we need to give them credit for at least having some sort of conversation about it.
Yeah.
Whereas, as I'll explain when I give the results of the scorecard, not all companies are. It's not even on the agenda of some companies
for discussion. Yeah.
But then you may argue McDonald's are only doing that to try and disguise the fact that they are making a whole heap of money out of flogging their junk food at us.
Yeah. Okay, I'll let you take me through your report card and how you structured it and what you found, and I'll just ask questions along the way. That's all right.
Sure. So, as I said, we looked at the biggest food companies in Australia, and we gave them a rating out of 100 on how seriously they're taking nutrition issues. So we looked at what they're doing to improve the healthiness of their products, so their commitments around, say, reducing salt and sugar in their products. We also looked at their commitments around reducing marketing of unhealthy food to kids, which we know is a key area of importance. We also looked at their commitment to things like nutrition labeling, to how they price their products and what products they make available. When we've looked at what drives individuals to make their purchasing decisions, taste is the biggest factor, but price comes in second. So people are looking at what products they like and how much they cost. So price comes into it really strongly, and the way companies use price promotions in particular is a key thing that's in their control. They choose what products to put on special, and that influences consumption. So our scorecard of companies took all of these things into account. We looked at what companies are promising in each of these areas. And what we found is that companies actually vary a great deal about how seriously they take nutrition issues. Some of these big companies have quite good commitments in the area. So, for example, nutrition labeling. Several companies have committed to provide good information to consumers. There's a government scheme called the Health Star Rating System, which is a voluntary scheme that companies can elect to apply to their products. And it is a simple rating system that rates a product on its healthiness. So if you've got a healthy product, it gets 5 stars. If your product's not so healthy, it gets 1 star. So some of the companies have elected to put that Health Star rating on all their products, which is great for consumers. So you can see at a glance which products are healthy.
But assuming those products and those companies are doing pretty well on the star rating, or are you saying that they're still having transparency, saying, yes, we know that these rice bubbles are full of crap and they've got a 1 star, but we're still going to be honest about that, and then it's over to you to make that decision.
Yeah, and so I think some companies have taken that step and put it on all their products, whereas other companies are only putting it on their 5-star products.
Yeah, okay. So they are being honest where there may not be a great star rating.
Well, some companies are.
Some companies,
and other companies, that's why I say there's variation. So some companies are choosing either not to put this Health Star rating on their product at all, or they're only putting it on the healthy ones.
Yeah.
We also see a big variation in companies' commitments to marketing to kids. So this is an area where the public health community has put a lot of pressure on governments and food companies to stop targeting kids with ads for junk food. And so in response to this, the industry has at least pretended to take action. So some companies make promises like, we will not market our food to kids, which sounds great. But then when you look at the detail, what they actually mean maybe is kids under 8. So it's okay to target a 9-year-old with their unhealthy products.
Dodgy. Like as if, 9 till 18 is still not kids.
Yeah,
well,
that's right.
I mean, okay, give or take how you think about teenagers, but yeah.
Well, that's right. So, so their promises might be, we won't market to kids, but we will sponsor kids' sport. So this is kids in primary school. We're going to flash our logo on the front of their footy jumper.
Yeah.
But that's at the same time as they've got on their website saying we don't market to kids. And so really what the scorecard was about is adding some rigor to this, really making companies accountable to say, hang on, we're actually reading these promises you make and we're assessing them based on best practice and trying to show companies that are actually taking the lead and companies that are really either doing nothing or just tokenism.
Who were some of the companies that were being particularly, okay, as an example, because I know that's a really general question, and I know that you don't necessarily want to be put on the spot by going, okay, out of the 100 names, I'm going to throw you a Nestle or a McDonald's or, whatever it is. But who in relation to doing tricky things where they said that they wouldn't market to kids, but then marketed heavily in their sport, because I think that's pretty shady. Like if you're, if you've been pointed out as not actually as being not good for children, let's be honest, and let's talk about Cocoa Pops or whatever. Like that is not good to raise your children on Cocoa Pops. What is a company that has done like, okay, we won't market to kids, but hey, look at us over here over at Auskick or, the local footy game?
Yeah, so I said I didn't want to unfairly target McDonald's, but certainly McDonald's do sponsor a lot of community sport. And it's just that they do that as an exemption to their promise on marketing to kids. We know Kellogg's also promises not to market to kids, but they cleverly exclude the actual food packaging from that commitment. So it's okay for them to put cartoon characters on the Cocoa Pops or on their breakfast cereals have these cartoon characters, which
it's going to get
if they're not aimed at kids, I'm not sure who they're aimed at.
Look, those little eyeballs are going to go, Mum, there's so-and-so.
And so they've got these clever loopholes in their commitments where it's maybe okay to have a cartoon character on the front of the package, or it's okay to have their name on the footy jumpers, but at the same time they promise that they're not marketing to kids.
Yeah, and they're like, okay, but we're not. We've pulled all of those TV commercials. We're not coming at you, when the kids are in front of the TVs.
Yeah, well, we could be here for the entire podcast talking about these loopholes.
I'm interested in lots of loopholes. Can I have another loophole?
Well, you mentioned the ads during TV shows. What they say is they're not going to target kids, so that means that they don't put their ads on at say 10 in the morning when it's a cartoon, when it's clearly a kid's cartoon show. But we know that most Australian kids are watching TV when adults watch TV, prime time, just before dinner and in prime time. And so they run their ads then. And so Australian kids are seeing all these ads for junk food. They're heavily exposed to it. But the companies can get away with saying, well, we're not targeting the kids. We're targeting the adults. And so the kids happen to see it, but that's not our problem.
Oh, well, that's absolutely ridiculous. And do they get away with that, or they get
so at the moment
score low on your report card?
Well, they score low on our report card, but when the government comes to looking at the rules around what ads you can market, so we know, for example, tobacco ads are not allowed, but the government says, oh no, the industry's got their own promises around this, so it's okay. We don't need to regulate ads, junk food ads on primetime TV because the food industry, I've read all their great commitments on that. That's what the government says. And so they are getting away with this. And so while we're doing this research to make them accountable for this action is to try and shine a spotlight on these loopholes and really either push for them to take serious action or for the government to put serious regulations in place to stop this.
And also, having worked for a media agency, they would also be spending a ton of money with the media agency, and the media agency would be really kind of acting as their little FBI of saying, this is where they are, this is what they think, don't worry about them, they won't turn off, and also getting their money across the line. And also finding the loophole responses. If it's a McDonald's saying, I've got 10 million, but we can no longer advertise, we've got to pull back some money on TV because we've got the spotlight on coming at kids via the TV. Where else can we spend the money? Like, we're going to spend the money, but where else do we get to them?
That's right. And so knowing that they're so sophisticated in their marketing and they know how to target audiences through different channels, they get to who they want to get to. Really, the only way to really stop this is for governments to regulate this like they have for tobacco, to really stop stop this marketing across of unhealthy products to our children who are overweight and obese. The way to stop that is to ban it across all channels. So and there's several examples of countries that are now doing that.
I was going to say, what countries have done that?
Chile is probably the leading light, where they have comprehensive restrictions on junk food advertising to kids.
Right.
So in Chile, you can't advertise unhealthy products on TV before a certain time of night. It applies across various channels where these companies, through their sophisticated techniques, might want to target kids. And there's several other countries in South America that are taking those steps. Canada's been running a process to try and get similar restrictions in place. The UK is looking at putting stronger restrictions in place. Unfortunately, Australia's lagging behind in that area. So other countries around the world are recognizing the problem. They're seeing the behavior of food companies in this area, but Australia, unfortunately, is leaving it up to the food companies to take action themselves.
God, that's so lazy. I want to talk to you because I know that you have also done a score or a rate card on governments in terms of who's genuine and actively trying to help in this area, and I guess who's putting pressure or not going to put pressure on the food companies. But just going back to say South America and say Chile, for example, it's purely because because of the burden on the healthcare system and the costs.
Yeah, so
that they're doing this.
So rates of obesity in countries in South America have really skyrocketed. So as those countries have kind of increased in their economic, as they've got richer,
yes,
it's happened in a really short space of time. Uh-huh. Their diets have just gone out of control. So obesity rates are really skyrocketing. And so the governments there are recognizing that they've got this public health crisis on their hands, and they are taking serious steps to address it. We've seen taxes on unhealthy foods in a lot of countries. Mexico led the way there, and strong restrictions on marketing, great nutrition labeling laws, and so there's a whole heap of countries that are taking this issue seriously, and so we looked at how Australia is going compared to international best practice, how the Australian government is going, and while there's some areas where the government's going okay, on the whole, Australia is really lagging behind, and that's really disappointing in the context of how in the past Australia's really led the way in health promotion. So things like tobacco control, Australia led the world and still leads the world in our tobacco control initiatives. In road safety, Australia's campaigns really led the world, but unfortunately in obesity, our report cards show that we're really lagging behind.
How will you change tomorrow? Design a future beyond your own. Design a future that makes a difference. Deakin's research students are the best and the brightest, with access to global leading researchers, world-class facilities, industry partnerships, and innovative research centres, designing cutting-edge solutions that make an impact. Become a change maker. Become a Deakin research student. To discover more, go to deakin.edu.au/research. Deakin, more than a university.
Why is it not a big enough deal to governments? Is it because the interesting thing, I always think as an Australian, I think, oh, we're like seen as this sort of healthy country and we've got such sporty, healthy people. Like if you consider each country as sort of like a brand or an identity, I would have thought that we were known as being a healthy nation and healthy people, but we're clearly not. Why is it not on the agenda enough?
Rates of obesity in Australia are really high compared to other countries, similar countries to us. The reasons are complex. Policy making is complex, but what we have found in our research is that it's the lobbying of food companies that has really prevented strong public health action in this area. So the food companies are very close to government.
In what way? Like, how does the government benefit? I mean, obviously there's taxes and whatever, but if you can just break down like how food companies, like why would a particular politician or government, need to tread carefully with, say, a Unilever?
Well, the food companies, you said they're smart about their marketing, but I think they're even smarter about how they lobby government. So they make the case to government about how many jobs they create, which is certainly true. They are a big part of the economy, but they would threaten government that if certain public health policies go in place, then that would, they claim, would be catastrophic for their jobs.
And no one wants that on their watch.
That's right. A key example, if I give you one, is food company lobbying against taxes on sugary drinks, where the big soft drink companies claim that would lead to big job losses. It would affect the economy.
Are we talking like a Coca-Cola or something? Okay.
Coca-Cola, but also the sugar growers. So certainly up in Queensland, we know Queensland grows a lot of sugar. But really, when we've looked at the evidence around their claims, the food companies' claims around how this would harm the economy, they don't stack up. So, for example, sugar growers, most of Australian sugar is exported, the vast majority.
Right.
And so when we've done the analysis, if you look at how a tax on sugary drinks would reduce consumption of soft drinks, it would have a minuscule effect on sugar growers. It would hardly affect sugar growers at all. But yet the industry is very smart at lobbying government and saying that these efforts would affect the economy, affect jobs, and so governments don't want to touch it.
So because it's the figures that they're presenting them with documents to say, right, this is, categorically what would happen, therefore what would happen on your kind of watch.
Yeah.
Are they kind of like speculating and forecasting in a way
that's right.
Right?
The evidence that they're presenting to government wouldn't stack up if you ran it through a scientific process. Also, but there's other ways that they lobby government.
Yeah. What are the other ways? Because I imagine there's a lot of kind of like, I don't know whether you call it emotional blackmail, government blackmail, like blackmail in terms of a veiled threat that this could happen and it's not going to be great for you.
So one strategy is through political donations. So many food companies and companies in general make large donations to
That's a worry in itself,
political
isn't it?
parties. Oh, it's a big worry. And so
a major worry. That's our gun issue, really, isn't it? If you're looking at if America, how many people are lost in America? Obviously, I know they have their own obesity issues, but how many people are lost in America, by guns? Okay, thankfully we don't have that significant issue.
Yep.
But we have a significant issue of people dying related to obesity, related, health diseases. So isn't that a little bit the same, that if I'm making a big donation to a political party and yet I am at the core of, the tentacles that lead to, thousands and thousands of Australians dying, that seems really dodgy.
Well, certainly there's a concern that the politicians are making decisions not purely on what's best for the country. So it's certainly what we would want is our politicians to be making decisions in the public interest, not the private interest.
Correct, yeah.
Other ways that companies lobby government or try and influence policy to be in their favor are through initiatives like their voluntary commitments in this area. So I've touched on the example of marketing to kids, where the food companies have really close relationships with politicians where they say, no, you don't need to regulate us at all. Look at our strong policies in this area. We're already doing stuff here. Don't worry about regulating
We've
us.
got it covered. Leave us.
We've got it covered.
Yeah.
And you see examples of the health minister in a photo shoot with the head of the Beverage Council. They represent Coke and Pepsi. And they're arm in arm talking about the great commitments that the industry is making. And so really, as a society, we need to be asking whose interests do the politicians have at heart?
Yeah, that's the really powerful thing that I think I'm getting out of this is look through the smokescreen. What's honest and the agendas. Yeah,
that's right. And so back to our scorecards this is our effort to try and make both the politicians and the food companies accountable for what they're actually doing in this area, comparing them to what international best practice is, and trying to drive some change through that mechanism.
So what is how do you go about approaching the governments with your findings, both on government and also on the food companies? Like what is it, like a email going, hey, just got some stats through, you might be interested in? How does that work?
Well, what we found is that the media really love this type of research. A scorecard is very media friendly. And so when we've released these results with the scorecard showing kind of which state in Australia is doing the best, or which food companies are doing the best or worst, it's got great media pickup.
I see.
And so it's
like an open letter to the government.
Yeah. And so what we found is that the media attention really helps raise the awareness of the senior decision makers to this issue.
Yeah.
And it really gets it on their agenda because it's on the front page of the Herald Sun or the national newspapers. It's on the radio. We've seen that has generated formal responses. When we rated governments, we got a formal response from the government as well as the opposition, who's explaining their performance. From food companies, the day we released the results rating food companies, we had several different responses. One of the CEOs of one of the fast food companies recorded a YouTube video explaining their commitment to health in response to our report. So that just showed me that they're at least taking notice. We're getting it on their agenda. And as I say, some companies ignored it, but other companies recorded videos, and a couple of companies actually threatened to sue me for putting out the report that they didn't quite like the results. Of course, there were no basis to those threats. We were presenting our research, but
are you allowed to say who came in with the lawyers?
I won't go there.
Okay.
But as a researcher, it was while I didn't appreciate getting the legal letters, it did show me that this idea of rating companies and putting it out there, getting media exposure, is getting their attention. They're taking it seriously, and our hope is that can lead to action down the track.
And so are you continually monitoring, as you know, based on the scorecard? Like, how often are you doing that? Because it's obviously something that is getting attention and is needed more and more.
Yeah, so we certainly plan to regularly repeat the exercise. Every couple of years, we'll release new reports, and so they'll get the idea. We're on their back. We're watching what they're doing. And even though maybe 2 years sounds like a long time, we do recognize that policy change takes time. And these companies, it's often a complex hierarchy to make decisions. So
and it can also be refreshed and changed within 2 years.
Yeah, that's right. So we certainly plan on keeping on their back and also at the same time pressurizing government to take action like other countries have taken action.
Where do we officially find your report card?
Well, perhaps it's all on the web. So I'm sure there's a way we can add the links to the podcast.
Yes,
where
that's a good idea. We'll do that.
See those links.
Yeah, we'll do that. So I'm sure people will be wondering in terms of your report card on governments, who came out as the better guys and who came out as not so great?
So we rated the federal government as well as each of the states. So the federal government, if you compare them to other countries around the world, are kind of mediocre. There's a few things they're doing well, but mostly kind of pretty average. When you look at the state governments, there's some states that are taking obesity really seriously. Recently, the Queensland government has just put out a really strong obesity prevention strategy. The ACT government has, for many years, had a strong obesity prevention strategy in place. And other governments around the country are maybe taking action in some areas, but not in others. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. So you'd see good practice in one state in one area, but that state's falling down in others.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. What are Queensland doing? Like, what's part of, like, do you know specifically what are they?
Probably the biggest thing that Queensland are doing is that they've stopping outdoor advertising of junk food. So anything that's government owned, like train stations, bus shelters, they're getting rid of junk food ads there, which is really great leadership from the Queensland government. Yeah. And it's something that's really in the control of governments to take action. They own the train stations. They could just make the rules. Sorry, no junk food ads there. And that's what Queensland have done. That's
fantastic. And ACT, similar?
Yeah, ACT have done the same thing, but they also, and in addition to that, they've got a whole range of initiatives to help companies in the ACT and the communities to take action against obesity.
Okay, so now I'm really interested in finding out in terms of food companies. I don't know whether you've also sort of related this back to governments, but who are the food companies? Like, is part of your report looking at climate change and the impact on the environment that these companies are having? Because it must be substantial.
So our research does not specifically look at the impact on climate change, but what we do know is that there are strong links between obesity and climate change. Which
how does that work?
Yeah, I think it comes down to the underlying drivers of both of those. So obesity is driven by overconsumption. We're over-consuming food in this case. Yeah. But climate change at its heart is about overconsumption in general. We're just consuming too much, and that's bad for the planet in very simplistic terms. And so the underlying driver of both of obesity and climate change is this focus on overconsumption. And for a company where how that plays out is that companies are focused on short-term profit growth. So it's not enough to just make money. Every quarter you need to make more money. And that's how the stock market values companies. And so we have an economic system that is pushing companies to sell us stuff all the time, relentlessly, more and more every quarter.
Yeah.
And so while our report only looked at nutrition, the underlying point is that companies can't just look at profit. As a society, that is not working for us. The consequence is we're seeing climate change as a consequence. We're seeing obesity as a consequence.
Yeah.
And so how I see business models of the future is looking at ways to make money that are not bad for our health and are not bad for the environment. And when investors are assessing where to put the money, where to put our superannuation funds, it isn't good enough to focus solely on profit. And so we need to look at other mechanisms to value and to report on how companies are going on our health and on the environment.
You've got some ideas on what you would like to see in the future on that, haven't you?
Well, yeah. So there is a responsible investment community, which is a whole industry looking at ways that we can invest money in a responsible way. So many people might know when they get a new job and they've got a new super fund, you get the option of typically. You can invest in the growth fund, which is going to make you lots of money quickly, or you can have a stable fund. But there's also the option, many people would have seen a green option, where you can invest in companies that are good for the environment. That's probably a minor player at the moment.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel really, really bad and ignorant that I've never seen that on there, or I didn't know about
maybe
that.
That your fund doesn't have that, but certainly some funds do.
Yeah.
But where I think as a society we need to go is that in addition to just looking at green investments, we need to think of health being incorporated in that.
Yeah.
And so we need to have ways of evaluating companies' impact on health. And then we need to mainstream that when we're all making investment decisions through our superannuation.
Yeah.
But also more importantly, I guess the massive hedge funds that are investing billions of dollars every day, they need to be worried about not just short-term profit growth, but also thinking about the impact that these companies are having on our health and on the environment, and factoring that into investment decisions.
Yeah. And then we know that we're not buying into, literally, the greed model. That America seems to be running like a dog chasing its tail, caught up in the whole structure of the greed model, in the healthcare system, in their, production, like everything.
Yeah, well, it's not just America. I think it's the whole global system is caught up in that model. And there are really good mechanisms in place where this can shift. And certainly in younger generations, we know that social consciousness is increasing. And so what as a researcher, I'm looking at ways on how we can accurately reflect companies' impact on more than just the economy, and also how to get investors to really take this into account, and what actions individuals can take to influence these companies through where we put our money through superannuation, but as well as just general advocacy that we're saying that the current system just is not good enough.
Yeah, that's right. I think not we all, but enough of us and more of us day by day want to be, feel like that we're not just in the control of these companies and this system and the government and everything, that we want to have our own sort of footprint in it all. Yeah,
that's right. And so for how I see my research fitting in is that so we're focused on companies' impact on nutrition, really, but we can see broader implications for assessing a whole range of companies on their impact on health and the environment. And so that we can move towards a model where you can make money in a way that's good for people and the planet.
And show that it can be done.
That's right.
Thank you. What a great, fascinating chat. Thanks, Gary. Thanks for joining in the conversation with us about our healthcare system. If you'd like more information on any of the topics or researchers in this series, simply head to iht.deakin.edu.au.